At 8:43 a.m., we continue this morning with news and views right here on Salam Media. Now, today marks quite a significant day with regards to what we've come to learn as the controversial Bella Bill, which will be signed into law. Now, we've seen over a period of time, we've seen the concerns, and particularly with regard to public engagement, public involvement, and implementation on the implementation of the Bella Bill. Now, a lot has been said about a number of issues that are contained in the bill, from things like abortion to centralized governance of education, the curriculum, sexuality education, parents' rights with regards to the Bella Bill. And this is the reason why we are talking with Motheo Brodie this morning with Section 27 to separate what is fact against fiction, and also just to understand what some of these myths surrounding the Bella Bill are. Motheo, good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having us this morning.
Yes, much has been said about the Bella Bill over a period of time. Much has been written. A lot of engagement has taken place. We've seen a lot of public involvement, and we've seen a lot of resistance as well to the signing of the Bella Bill. And this morning, Matteo, let us try and let us just unpack this Bella Bill. And I've spoken about a few broad headings, which are obviously bones of contention and also a lot of confusion surrounding some of these issues that have been raised about the Bella Bill.
Sure. Section 27 has been working on the Bella Bill since 2017, when we had the first version of the bill. And we welcome the fact that the Bella Bill has now been passed, and as you have just alluded to, will be signed this morning by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Essentially, what the Bella Bill seeks to do is to align our legislation, particularly the South African Schools Act and the Employment of Educators Act, with the developments that have happened over time from our courts. We've had multiple judgments that have developed our law, and what this bill does really is to update all these laws to ensure that our laws are constitutional and are up to date. The legislation that is. As you have said, it's been quite a heated bill, and to many of us, it's inexplicable as to many of us that are involved in the education space, inexplicable why there's been such a contention. Because I think really what the Bella Bill looks to do is quite straightforward, and it's not controversial at all. There's been a lot of issues, including things like comprehensive sexuality education, issues around abortions that really aren't regulated by this bill at all, that people have thrown into the basket of what the bill is dealing with. And so we welcome this opportunity to discuss really what the bill looks at. So some of the key things you highlighted, the issue around abortion. The Bella Bill, like I said, does not deal with abortion at all. The abortion is dealt with the choice of termination of pregnancy act, and there it's a separate act which details how someone can go about getting an abortion. That is not within the realm of Bella at all. Another issue which has been quite controversial, which is also misplaced, is issues around the curriculum. The questions on the curriculum are also a separate matter. The Bella Bill really, in essence, deals with school governance. Curriculum is dealt with through the National Curriculum and Assessment Policy Statement, CAPS. And any changes that are done to CAPS will involve public consultation, and there'll be an opportunity for people to comment on that. That is not what the Bella Bill seeks to do at all. I've spoken about comprehensive sexuality education as well. The Bella Bill also does not deal with comprehensive sexuality education at all. What I think has merit and has been an issue of hot debate, which the bill does talk about, is the role of school governing bodies and the powers that they have and how this bill affects them. I don't know if you'd like me to expand on that or if I should pause there.
Yes, please, Motheo, I'd like you to expand on this because the one key issue and one of the most controversial issue is with regard to central governance, and centralized governance, for want of a better term, because at the end of the day, this has been a concern. And you speak about school governing bodies, we're speaking about the SGBs and the powers of the SGBs that will be taken away, and where the government will basically maintain full control over in a centralized manner as well, and maintaining full control over the entire education system.
Sure. So there has been a lot of resistance, specifically from school governing bodies and some sects in the political space. Now, for those that aren't familiar with our education system and the model that it uses, we have a cooperative governance system, which means that SGBs and communities, because they are best placed to know what the needs of their schooling environment is and the communities are, must have an input on the policies of the school, right? But it's not only them. The cooperative aspect also entails that government must also have a say to ensure that these policies are in line with our constitution. And with the amendments that have been made in this Bella bill, this system of cooperative governance is retained. What happens now is that in relation to language policies and admissions policies, which I must also give context to, historically privileged schools, historically white and privileged schools, have often used language policies and admissions policies to gatekeep access to these schools, right? So, for example, a school in a community which has a public school in a community which has some Afrikaans speaking people, but a wide majority of the people in that community may not be Afrikaans speaking. And the school then say this school only has as its language of instruction Afrikaans, right? And that essentially cuts out access to everyone else in that community to that school except for the Afrikaans speaking people. Now, what Bella says is that any language policy or admissions policy, the school governing body still has the power to develop that policy, but it must be subject to the approval of the head of department from the provincial education department, right? And there's certain things that the provincial education department or the head of department must consider before approving this language policy or admissions policy. And part of the things that they must consider is what the needs of the broader community are, right? If there's a few schools in a community and those schools offer Afrikaans and the majority of the people in that community don't speak Afrikaans, then it doesn't make sense for our public resources to be spent on Afrikaans schools, for example, which exclude the majority of the community members in that particular community. And so essentially what must happen is that the HOD must approve and must take into account these factors about how do we ensure that everyone has equal access to education? How do we ensure that we spend our taxpayers' money in a way that is equitable to all people, irrespective of the language that they speak, irrespective of their class, irrespective of their race? And so that's essentially all it does. If the policies from the school governing body take into account the needs of the community, then there's in theory should be no reason for an HOD to instruct SGB to amend its admissions or language policy. The other important thing here is that Bella empowers the HOD to instruct the SGB to adapt to include an additional language of instruction. So, for example, in the examples that I've made, if the school is only offering Afrikaans, the HOD can say you must make provision for English as well, or you must make provision for Setswana as well in that particular community. Of course, then that school must be adequately resourced in terms of teachers and in terms of financial resources as well. So that's essentially, I think, what the hoo-ha has been. But by and large, SGBs retain their policy-making functions in line with the cooperative governance system in our public education system.
Motheo, another issue is homeschooling, and we know many parents, many learners are being homeschooled as we speak. And the whole question surrounding parents' rights in terms of controlling the child's education, that has been a sticky issue. It's been an issue of much debate. And again, looking at the Bella Bill and taking away parents' rights to control their children's education, but also at the same time enforcing curriculums on parents who opt for homeschooling their children.
Sure. Yeah, this has been another controversial one. And essentially, what this amendment does is that it still allows parents to continue homeschooling should they choose to. But what must be important, or what must be central, is that the best interests of the children are protected. So before you as a parent are able to continue with homeschooling, one, you must register the child with the provincial education department. And there's certain things that you must show to the provincial education department and the head of department when you apply, right? One, that education at home is in the best interest of the learner, and that you as a parent understand fully what home education entails, and you accept the full responsibility for implementation of that home education. But also importantly, because what you sometimes find is that you parents choose to homeschool their kids, but have no idea about what a child needs to learn, or because they're not qualified as educators. And so the head of department also needs to make an assessment of whether the education program is suitable for the learner's age, their grade level, and their ability to acquire the content. And it must be comparable to what is offered in the public education system. So really, this amendment is about regulating homeschooling and ensuring that learners who are being homeschooled are not being homeschooled with a curriculum or content that is inferior to what is offered in the public education system. And it's in essence protecting the best interests of the learner to ensure that they do receive a basic education.
Just finally, Motheo, I know the Bella Bill has become a political hot potato. Okay, we've seen during the week, we've seen John Steenhuisen threatening to walk away from this government of national unity, this marriage of convenience, which we've subsequently learned he's actually backtracked as well. We've seen other political parties like Action SA talking about taking legal action if Cyril Ramaphosa signs this bill into law, and they've cited a few issues as well. And the whole question surrounding morality, I think, is one of the issues that they've spoken about. The whole, I think, the blanket lifting of the alcohol, the sale of alcohol in schools as well as proposed in the Bella Bill. And some of these issues obviously starting to creep up as well from a morality perspective. I think early on you spoke about sexuality education, you spoke about abortion as well, and also this whole question about the sale of alcohol in schools.
Yeah, these are questions, these are points that have been raised by political parties. And we also have been following the statements that have been made by parties like the Democratic Alliance and Action SA. But I think essentially we can speak about morality, but the main question must be whether this bill is constitutionally compliant or not. Is it in line with what our constitution says? Does it protect the best interests of children? Does it enhance the immediately realizable right to a basic education as contained in Section 29 of our Constitution? And so there are issues around the sale of alcohol on school premises, etc. But those are issues that I think can be dealt with through engagement with the Department of Basic Education, through management by school governing bodies, etc. But overall, our belief is that the bill is constitutionally compliant, and we support its signing today.
Well, Motheo, we're going to have to leave it at that. And once again, we do appreciate you taking time out with us right here on Salam Media this morning. All the best to you, sir, and please take care.
Thank you very much. Have a good morning.
Motheo Brodie Candidate Attorney with Section 27, unpacking some of the fact versus fiction with regards to the Bella Bill. And we know it is going to be signed into law this morning by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Next up, Juma Inspirations with Maulana Abdullah Khan.